Stopping a pendulum. There are some situations where the pendulum cannot be defeated, which means it cannot be ignored or escaped. I had a friend once who was a really nice, kind-hearted guy, as well as being gifted with incredible physical strength. Late one evening, we were traveling in a tram and spotted a group of bullies looking for trouble. In other words, a really destructive pendulum. There were quite a few of them, and they were feeding each other with negative energy, convinced of their own invulnerability. As a rule, this type of group needs to be constantly bullying someone who will react to their provocation in order to increase their energy level. The men in the group started picking on my friend, probably because the kind and peaceful expression on his face suggested he was easy prey. They tried in any way they could to pick a fight by insulting and taunting him. However, my friend remained silent and refused to be provoked. In other words, he was trying to defeat the pendulum. I decided not to get involved because I knew he had nothing to fear, whereas the thugs were really risking it. Finally, my friend could not take it any longer and got up from his seat and heading for the exit. The most brazen adherent blocked his way. Then my friend, who was by now totally cornered, grabbed the punk by the scruff of the neck and delivered a powerful blow to his head. The victim's face was smashed to a pulp. The remaining toughies froze with fear and amazement. My friend turned to grab the next one, who in a trembling voice mumbled, "That's enough, man. Stop." The energy of the pendulum had been instantly dispersed, and its adherents, who were very taken aback, edged slowly away from him, finally tumbling out of the tram. Of course, people like my friend who can stand up for themselves are lucky. But what do you do if you are not like that? If there is nowhere to retreat to, you can stop the pendulum swing by doing something extraordinary that no one would ever expect. Somebody told me a story once about a man who was cornered by a pack of fearless street gang members. He was about to get beaten up when he turned to the gang leader with an insane stare and said, "What would you like me to break first? Your jaw or your nose?" The question clearly did not fit with the usual script, and the gang leader was taken aback for a moment. Then, with unhealthy enthusiasm, the man cried, "Or maybe I'll just tear your ear off." And with that, he grabbed the gang leader by the ear, who let out an agonizing cry. The entire scenario that the gang was used to playing out had gone awry. The gang leader was no longer thinking about beating anybody up. His only concern was how to save his ear from the madman's grip. The gang let the man go, assuming he was a psychiatric patient, and he escaped a fatal beating. If you ever find yourself in a situation that you know will unfold according to a set script, do something surprising. It does not matter what you do, as long as it is something that does not fit with the standard script. This will stop the pendulum swing. As long as you are acting out a prepared script, you are effectively agreeing to play by the pendulum's rules and give away your energy at the resonance frequency. If, however, the vibrational frequency of your energy differs significantly from that of the pendulum, dissonance will be created, which will disturb the pendulum's beat. At the same time, it is not worth looking for trouble if you are dealing with a pendulum that has nothing to lose. If you are mugged by a person who is desperate for money, it is better to hand over your wallet right away. Some people even carry a 10-pound note with them just in case they end up in a similar situation. If the robber is a drug addict or mentally ill, Even a martial arts expert could end up losing their life. Obviously, it is better to have no contact at all with types like this, just as you would avoid a rabid dog. If things were to suddenly go wrong, it could end in a tragic and yet absurd death. A sense of humor and strong imagination can be very helpful if you want to stop a pendulum swing, because they can help you transform your irritation into a game. For example, imagine that you are being tormented by the crush of a crowd of people on the street or in public transport. Everyone is rushing in the opposite direction, making it difficult for you to make your way. Now imagine that you are in Antarctica and that all the people around you are actually penguins, waddling, fussing, and pottering about in their own funny way. Imagine that you are a penguin too. Holding this image in your mind, the people who had seemed so irritating just a few moments ago will appear more pleasant, even evoking your curiosity. Of course, it is difficult to control yourself at moments when what you really want to do is vent your anger and have a good rant. At these times, it is hardest of all to remember that a pendulum is behind it all, trying to incite a response so that it can draw on your energy. Do not respond to provocation. The pendulum is like a vampire that exploits the anesthetic of your habit of responding negatively. Even now, despite having just read these lines, you could express your irritation if you were distracted by an unwanted telephone call. If you set yourself the goal of remembering until it becomes habit, you will gradually work up immunity to the provocation of pendulums. You will probably have noticed how when you respond to a disappointing situation with irritation, displeasure, or other negative emotion, the situation escalates in the same spirit, or other things start to go wrong too. This is the pendulum swinging higher and higher. If you react, you end up being the one to push it higher. It is more effective to act in the opposite manner, either not reacting at all or reacting in an abnormal way. For example, if when you find yourself in an unpleasant situation, you respond with false enthusiasm or wacky delight, the pendulum's swing will be brought to rest, and you will see that the provocation stops with it. Earlier, we said that the habit of reacting negatively to unpleasant circumstances triggers the pendulum's mechanism for capturing thought energy. This habit will fade if you decide to play your own game in which you deliberately substitute negative emotion with positive emotion. Confidence for fear, enthusiasm for gloom, indifference for resentment, joy for irritation. Try reacting inappropriately to small nuisances. You have nothing to lose. It might seem a silly game to play, but the pendulum will have no chance. The game style only seems silly because pendulums have trained us to exclusively play the games that are of benefit to them. You can experiment with forcing the pendulum to play your game. You will enjoy it and be surprised to discover what a powerful technique it is. The working principle is this: when you radiate thought energy at a different frequency to the pendulum's resonance frequency, you are in dissonance with the pendulum. The dissonance stills the pendulum's sway in relationship to your personal energy. The result being that the pendulum leaves you in peace. There is another interesting method aimed at gently bringing a pendulum to rest. If someone is getting to you or causing you a problem, try and work out what that person is missing and what they need. It could be health, confidence, or peace of mind. If you think about it, these are the three things we all need to feel fulfilled. ask yourself what the person you are finding so challenging might really need at that moment. For example, if your boss shouts at you, maybe they are tired or having problems at home, and what they really need is a little peace of mind. Imagine your boss relaxing in a comfortable armchair, watching the television, sitting beside an open fire, fishing by a river, or having a beer with friends. Perhaps you know of something else your boss likes to do. It may be that your boss is being pressured to take on more responsibility and is afraid of doing so. Perhaps what he needs is confidence. Imagine your boss skiing confidently, driving around in a sports car, or being the center of attention at a party. Your boss might be in some kind of pain. Imagine him feeling happy and fresh, swimming in the sea, riding a bicycle, or playing football. Of course, it is better to imagine them doing what they specifically like to do in their free time, but you do not have to guess. It is enough to simply imagine the person feeling content and happy. What is really happening in a situation like this, where your boss suddenly appears on the scene with a problem? Or it could be someone else like a mugger. Try to instantly distract yourself from whatever the problem is. That way, you avoid putting your head into the noose that locks your thoughts into a certain frequency from the very outset. Now imagine this person receiving exactly what they need. What does a robber need to eat, drink, get high? Visualize an image of the person's fulfillment. If you are successful, you can consider the problem solved. After all, the pendulum does not swing randomly. Something specific shifts it out of balance, causing it to start swaying. Consciously or unconsciously, the pendulum is seeking for the one thing that will restore its balance. The energy of your thoughts set to a certain positive frequency will do that, at least indirectly. And the pendulum will instantly substitute its aggression with goodwill as a result. If this is hard to believe, test out the technique for yourself. A pendulum person approaches you with a problem which you solve, not in an obvious way, but on an energetic level. The technique is based on the principle that stops a pendulum. You give the pendulum your energy, but only a tiny piece of it in comparison to the amount of energy you could have lost had you been drawn into the pendulum's game. Besides that, you have also done a good deed by helping someone in need, if only for a short time. The interesting thing is that this person will adopt a friendlier attitude towards you, even though they may never guess why they feel so comfortable in your company. That can be your secret. The same technique can be successfully applied in cases where you need something from someone who is absorbed in their own problems and not in the mood to collaborate. If, for example, you need an official signature on a document and you suspect they might be ill-disposed towards you, try treating them to a healthy dose of visualization, and you will find that they will be quite amenable. The last question is where all the energy goes when a pendulum is brought to rest. The answer is that the energy comes to you. Having coped with the problem once, you become stronger. The next time you try to solve a problem using this technique, it will not be as difficult. Is this not always the way? Fighting a problem head-on only leads to a loss of energy, which is absorbed by the pendulum that created it. Psychologists and psychotherapists are well acquainted with equivalent practices of defeating or stopping a pendulum. In this sense, the techniques described here are nothing new. However, they will be of value to anyone unfamiliar with practical psychology and give a clear understanding of how and why psychological protection is so effective.